How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the What's Up Eddie channel, Divine Therapy Sessions. And of course, I'm the one and only Eddie. So glad to have you guys back. And these are my Divine Therapy Sessions. And today's Eddie's Love Bug Advice. We're going to talk about why we're in karmic loops in relationships. And I guess more of an emphasis on why we're not able to release karmic relationships. And the difficulty in this process. So, oh my gosh, you guys, this subject is like, I mean, at times it could even be baffling in the present moment, because when I think about it, like each time that I was actually in this process, I couldn't even recognize that I was in it. You know what the crazy thing is when you are in a relationship and you have this notion of love in your mind, or what your truth of love is, because I think there's different definitions of loving, and I think there's different levels of love, right? And I think you can get blinded, and you want to see the best in others, but that expectation is just an expectation. It's not an actual reality, and it's a constant letdown when that standard isn't met. And it could be an argument could be made that, like, is that coming from the person, me, of making those expectations? Because expectations are future resentments, are they not? So, I mean, it is a difficult loop. And so to be more specific about these karmic relationship, it's pretty much a relationship where both parties are, like I said in the last video, it's more of a situationship. It's based out of in my opinion, primal instincts, whether that's based off of lust because of sex, or I think that it's because of people being more in the dark, in the darker shadow areas of their life, and they haven't resolved the issues necessary for them to be even in a relationship where it's going to be compatibility. There's going to be a compassion, empathy for each other, a compromise, right? Because relationships is a fine dance, and I do believe that there's a lot of compromise that's involved. And when you're in pride, in ego, and when you're in those darker shadows of your own character, it's hard to be in a relationship with another person. So saying that you're in that relationship, you're always trying to convince the other person that you're in a state where you're trying to convince each other, like, as if it's so funny, because it's like I always see it as, like, I'm envisioning it right now in my third eye, as a courtroom, and you have one person on the other side and the other person on the other side, and you got the O.J. Simpson of lawyers behind you, and the other person has the O.J. Simpson of lawyers for them, right? And we're building a case against each other, and it's an imaginary. It's all imaginary. It's crazy, right? But that's what could happen in our minds, right? When we're in these relationships. And I always say that everything is multi-layered, because we're not just humans. There's multiple things to us, right? We have a soul. We're spiritual beings, and just even the body, right? The mind, the body, the vessel. So, like, there's the vessel, and then there's the mind. There's two different things, right? And there's actually three brains. So what I'm saying, if I'm saying anything right now, I love tangents, right? But so everything is multi-layered. So going back to karmic loops, these karmic loops can look in a wide variety of different ways of how it can present itself. But for me, I noticed that when I've gone into the place of a spiritual awakening, and then a nourishment of my soul through a constant obsession to nourish myself, right? And this is a constant reevaluation and reinventing and implementation of a better standard of practices of every part of my life, right? And obviously bouncing this stuff off of a mentor, bouncing this stuff off of someone else who has a neutral stance on my life, right? Like, they're not going to be on Eddie's side on everything, right? Where they're going to give me opposition, positive, constructive criticism. So these loops that I'm talking about, karmic loops, sometimes you can't even notice it. You have to go through it over and over and over again, because a lot of it derives from codependency. And oof, this subject I'll dive in deeper, but codependency in itself, like for someone like me, codependency is rooted in me because of my addiction, right? I've become codependent on a substance. And if you're doing something in one part of your life, it spreads out like a virus in all other parts of it. So it's no different from my relationship. So it can come off as being, in previous relationships, I was codependent on the other person. I sought and seeked validation through the other person. The other person made me feel good. They were filling in the void. And when you do that, it's the same thing if you're trying to do it with drugs or alcohol or any of the wide variety of things on earth that we try to fill that void. It doesn't work, because unfortunately, you guys, another person isn't enough. They will always miss the standard, because no one on earth is perfect. We are perfect, right? It's always a paradox, but people on planet Earth weren't put here to make you feel better and fill in the void that is your responsibility, which is my responsibility, right? So the codependency is usually like at the base of what we have to really look at. And it's really hard to releasing this, because you get it all mixed up with love, right? And when you're in a relationship, an intimate relationship, there's other emotions, right? Where it gets more confusing. And I just feel like it's not a practical matter, right? When you have emotions attached to it. And I know I found myself many times like asking myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, I must be crazy. And even when I had a spiritual awakening, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm better than this, right? But it's not. And it's difficult. Like, where you can definitely see that you're entering into a toxic conversation or a toxic loop, right? Where like you guys continue to do the same thing over and over again, whether that be one person fishes you into an argument, you decide to argue with them, and it's about nothing, and then you go back to normal life thinking that it's all going to be better, but you do the same process over and over again. And then when you decide that you're going to stop it and the other person doesn't want to do that, that's the opposition force that I'm talking about. And it's up to you to notice that the cycle is even going on. And when you do, that's where success is made. And I've been guilty of it, man. I've been totally guilty of like just allowing that loop to continue for months, right? And I feel like that is stagnancy in a relationship. And like I said before, it doesn't just have to be in a relationship with the lover, right? It can be in any relationship. Stagnancy is the worst thing possible. We're always supposed to be in a constant place of nourishing, a constant place of I feel like the reinvention of ourselves, right? Definitely reevaluating things that are going on. But okay, so why do I say all this stuff? To shine a light on the fact that it even goes on. And why do we allow that to go on? Of course, I've explained it already, right? But I feel like for me, like this is just something that kept coming to me. And like, the reason why I had waited so long to talk about, relationships is because it's the meat and potatoes, man. It's where our true authentic, I can't even say the word right now. It is who we are, right? Like in our relationship is because it's behind closed doors. No, we think no one's watching, but like that is the true us, right? And I feel like because of my, and this is the beautiful part about having a spiritual awakening and spiritual growth. And I emphasize this on you guys so much, because this is where you evolve. This is where you change. And when you look at what I've talked about, you change exponentially, and you start to reevaluate and think about everything. It's difficult. It's very difficult. But I do think that, like, when you're nourishing your soul and you're looking at these, at like something like I'm talking about as like karmic loops and releasing a toxic person, it's a difficult process. But when you do it, it's like all things, you develop a habit for it, and then you recognize it in the next person. And so each relationship is always teaching us something for the next one, right? Until you reach your soulmate or the lover that is going to give you what you're expecting, because that person is going to be vibrating where you're at. And that all goes back to the nourishment of yourself. If you're in a high place, that is what you're going to magnetize. That's what's going to be magnetized to you. That all goes back to the law of attraction, right? But I think that's all I got, you guys. I love you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm sorry this was a little quick. Time got away from me, but I love you guys. Make sure to subscribe, give me a thumbs up. All right, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one.